Hey guys, so we're now in week 7 and we're starting out with Python. So before we start anything, I'm going to create the week 7 folder in my courses here. So I'm going to select new and folder and then week 7. So we're done with JavaScript, now we're moving on to Python. So I'm just going to play the first video and then I'll be back. Okay, so the first thing he showed us what to do is to install VS Code. So you should already have this installed, especially if you're following along with my tutorials, because I use this in every video. And yeah, we also need to install Python. So if you head to the videos section on my channel here, there's a Python video here that says installation and what is Python. So you just go through this if you're stuck installing Python, but you really shouldn't get stuck. You just download the installer, double click it and it will work. And yeah, if you don't have VS Code for some reason and you need to install that, here in the playlists, you want to go to Web Basics here and click on View Full Playlist. And it's this first video here, setting up VS Code with extensions and stuff. So with those two videos, you should have VS Code and Python installed. And yeah, I'm going to continue with this week's lessons. Okay, so now I'm just going to open up the week 7 folder in VS Code. So the way I like to do it is you right click inside the folder, you select open in terminal, and then you type code and a dot. And if I run this, it will open it up in VS Code. Now that's just my preference. I like doing that because then I have this terminal opened here with the folder. But you can just open up VS Code, select file, and open folder here, and then open up the folder that you're using for week 7. But yeah, ignore these notifications down here. Anyways, he recommended we install 2 extensions here. So in this last button here for extensions, the 2 he recommended was Python. So it's this one here. Just select it and install it. And the other one he recommended was Python indent, which is down here. And as you can see, I don't have this installed. That's why the install button is here. And I don't really want it. You don't need it. If you don't want it as well, don't install it. You don't need this. As long as you have Python installed, that's fine. And I also recommend you get Pylance. So just search here, Pylance. So those are the 2 extensions I recommend getting, Python and Pylance. But anyways, let's head back to the folder here. Okay, so to create a Python file, we just click this new file button here, same with any other programming language. And we just want to name the file .py at the end. So I'm not going to name it exactly what he named it. I'm just going to call mine hello.py. And once you have that created, you can just start typing your Python code here. So for now, he told us to type print, print, and then we use our brackets here, just like how we run functions in JavaScript. And then inside of those brackets, we need to give it a string to print out. So we're going to use our quotes here, and I'm just going to type hello world. And if I save this, the way he showed us to run this is you go up here to run, and then start debugging, and there's a few more steps. There's actually just a play button here on the right hand side. If you click that, it will just run your file. So here it just says hello world. The first time you click that play button, it may ask you which version of Python or whatever you want to use. Just select the one you have installed and it will run. And then in this thing that opened down here, there's 2 ways to close it. If you look up here, there's a small X button. And if you just hover above it without clicking, it actually says hide panel. So that's not actually closing this thing. To close it, you want to hit this trash can icon here. And that will close it completely. And yeah, let's move on to the next video. Okay, so now we're looking at strings here. And before that, to leave a comment in Python, you just use a hash here. And then whatever you type here, it doesn't get run as code. It's just for you to read. So we're working with strings here. And Basically, to create a variable in Python, it's similar to JavaScript, but we don't use any keyword at the beginning. So in JavaScript, we use let at the beginning, or if you're following exactly with those course videos, he was using var. But in Python, you just type the name of the variable. So for example, my str here. And then you put equals to, and here you just open up your quotes and you put a string inside. So I'm going to put the string Theo here. And now we can do print, and for a parameter here, we just type the variable that we just created. So I'm going to paste this in here. And if we run this, it will now just print out Theo here. So another thing he showed us is that obviously we can't have the same quote inside. We've already seen this when we were doing JavaScript. Basically what it does is it terminates the string here, and then that the editor has no idea what's going on this side because the string ends here. So if you're doing something like this, you need to use one type of quote on the outside, like double quotes, and then a single quote on the inside. Or you can do the opposite and put single quotes on the outside and a double quote on the inside. But you can't use the same type of quote to surround the string and on inside the string. You need them to be different. Now apart from this, you can also put 3 quotes here, and doing this you can now split your string into multiple lines. So you can say Theo is coding, and now if I run this, it will actually print it out as if it's on multiple lines here. This is not really that useful. We don't use it in coding that much, but sometimes we do this for when we're printing out warnings or error messages or something. Okay, so now let me clean this up and let me kill this terminal here. So when we're dealing with strings, if I type here for example Theo, when we're using that string we can use square brackets here to get one character from the string. So let's say for example I wanted this T here. Well, it's the first value in the string, but if we type 1 here and we run this, it will actually give us the H down here when it loads. So it gives us this H, and that's because Python starts indexing at 0. So the way it does it is T would be 0, and then H would be 1, E would be 2, and then O would be 3. So this is the way Python indexes strings here. So if we want that T, we need to get the 0 index here. And now if I run this, we can see that it grabbed T there. Now apart from getting just one character from the string, let's say you wanted the H and the E. So that would be the first index, which is the H, and then the second index, which is the E. Or let's say we wanted the whole thing, H, E, O. Well, we'd get from the first index, and we use our colon here, and then to the third index. So when we use a colon here, we're getting from the first character, which is the H, up to the third character, which is the O. And if I run this, it will return HE here. So actually this should be 4. And now if I run it, it will get HEO. The reason why we need to type 4 here is because it stops at 4. Meaning if we type 3 here, it will get the first one, the second one, and then stop at 3. It won't actually take that third character here. So when we use 4, it gets the first one, the second one, and the third one, and then it stops at 4. So that's why using 4 here returns 3 characters. Now we can also do other things with strings, like we can use len, and len is also a function, so I'm just going to neaten this up so you can see it better. We use len and our brackets here, and then we put the string name inside of it. And if we run this, it will now give us the length of the string, which is 4. So you can just count it up here. There's 4 characters here, obviously. And yeah, if I make the string bigger, even by adding spaces here, it will count those spaces as well. So now it became 6 because there's 2 spaces in here. So we can also do other things here, like we can do mystr.upper, and what this will do is it will take the string here and convert all the alphabets in it to uppercase. And this is actually a function, so we need to use our quotes here, our brackets here. And if I hit run, it will now print out Theo, but in all uppercase letters. And you can do the same thing with lower here. So if this was in uppercase to begin with, then when we run this, it will print it out in all lowercase. And lastly, we can also use .strip here. So what this function does is basically if we have a string that's exactly like this, where it has empty space at the beginning and at the end here, it will just trim that away and only print out the text here. So if I run this, you can see that the output slightly above it has a space at the start here, but this one down here doesn't have any spaces. So basically using this .strip strips out that white space that we just had extra here. An easy way to make sure that strip is actually doing what I say it's doing, let's just clear this terminal here because it's a bit messy now. I'm going to duplicate this line 3 times. And at the top here, I'm going to do length of the variable. And on the bottom here, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Length of str or mystr. And then here in the middle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reassign mystr. So mystr is equal to mystr dot strip. And what we should see here is, to start out with, this is 6 characters long. So I'm going to write that here. And then we're printing out the length here, so we should get 6. And then we're reassigning what's inside of mystr. And we're setting it equal to mystr.strip. And remember, .strip removes those white spaces. So it should remove 2 white spaces here, and we should be left with 4 characters in the string. And now when we print it out here, the length of mystr, we should get 4 here. So if I run this, we should see 6 and 4 if strip is working correctly. So I'm going to run that. And yes, we see 6 here and then 4 below that. So that explains how the strip function works here. So if we have 2 items in here, so I'm just going to get rid of Theo as well. And I'll type here apple, comma, orange. A function we can use here is mystr.split. And inside of the brackets here for the split function, it takes a parameter which is what character do we want to use to split the string. So I want to split it by this comma here. So I want 2 items to come out of it. I'm going to use my quotes here and put the comma. And now if we run this, we should get a list back. A list is something in square brackets like this with items inside of it. So I'm going to delete this. Let's run this and see. And yeah, we get a list with 2 items inside of it. Now obviously this didn't cleanly split our list here, because orange has a space in the string here. And that's because it split it at this comma here. And then there was a space and then the word orange. So that space got included in orange here. And obviously we could trim that off by using the last function we looked at to get rid of the white spaces. But to combine this with strip, which is how we get rid of that white space, we'd have to use a loop or something here, which we haven't gone over yet, so I'm not going to cover it right now, but I'm sure we'll go over it in a few videos. Okay, so next here we're going to work with integers, and I'm not really going to go over this too much because we all know how numbers work by now. We use them in JavaScript already. You just create your variable here like mynum. You set it equal to a number like 3, and then down here you can print out that variable mynum, and it pretty much does what you expect. It'll print out the number 3. You can also do maths on this, like you can say +5 here, and we should get 8. Obviously the other operators work here as well, like if we put a star here, it will do multiplication. And yeah, there's basically all the operators are the same as in JavaScript, so there's nothing really for me to show you when dealing with the numbers here, so I'm going to skip the parts of the video where he's just dealing with the integers. So next we go over variables, and I already showed you how to create a variable. You just type the name here, like name for example, and then you type equals to, and you put the value that goes inside of it, like Theo. The one thing you want to know about variables is the name can't start with a number like this. It will give you an error. Also, you can't use 2 words as a variable name. It has to be either 1 word, or the 2 words need to be connected with the underscore or something. So this is valid, but without the underscore, if you just left a space here, it's no longer valid. You can't use 2 words here. Also, some people like the first word, they use all lowercase letters, and then the first letter of the second word they put in uppercase. And yeah, some people like to do it this way. It doesn't really matter how you do it. Just know that you can't have spaces in the variable name, and you can't start a variable name with a number. And variables can be used to store strings like this. They can be used to store numbers. They can be used to store Boolean values, which are true and false. And yeah, we've already seen all the data types in JavaScript, so I won't make the video too long for no reason. We all already know the data types. Okay, so after variables, he went over the different operators we can use with numbers. We already know how that works. For plus, we use a plus sign. For multiplication, we use a star. For division, we use the slash, and so on. We've done all this in JavaScript already. It's the same thing in Python. There's nothing different. One thing I'm going to show you as a bonus for those who made it this far into the video. We always use this play button here to run the Python script, but I actually like to run it in the terminal that I keep opened here, which is why I like to open VS Code this way. So if you want to run the Python code from this terminal, you just type the word Python here, and then the name of the file you want to run, so hello.py. But just know that you have to be in the folder here to be able to run the file. So if you opened VS Code the same way as me by opening up this terminal, then you should be in that folder by default. But if you just open up a blank terminal from here, it won't work that way. You have to be inside of the folder. So I'm going to type Python here, and then the name of the file. I'm just going to press tab and it will auto-complete the name of the file. And I hit enter here and it will run that in the terminal. Now the reason why I like to run it this way is because it's messy to have this terminal open down here. Especially if you have long code here. Having this opened as well just makes the area you work in smaller. So I like to keep my terminal open separately, and I run my code from there. Okay, next he just showed us how to add 2 strings together. We already know this from JavaScript. We insert our first string here like Theo, and then a plus sign, and our second string here. And if we print this out, it will just combine both the strings and print out one long string. So yeah, that's exactly what it does. No difference from JavaScript there. Now the one thing that is a bit different here is you can actually multiply a string by a number here. Like I can say Theo times 5 here. And if I run this, it will just print out the word Theo 5 times. So we can see it printed here. And this is not really that useful. It does have like some edge cases where you would need to print out the same string multiple times, or do something with the same string multiple times. So you can feed this into a function or something. but for right now you don't even need to remember this. It doesn't come in handy almost at all. Yeah, but just know that if you multiply a string by a number, it will print out the string that many times. Okay, so now we're finally getting to some interesting stuff. We're doing if statements now. So I'm going to create a variable here called age, and I'll set it equal to like 15, or yeah, 15. And we'll say if age is greater than 10, and we'll use a colon here. I think that's called a colon, the symbol with the two dots. And on the next line we need to give an indent here. So an indent is basically just a tab. You press tab on your keyboard and it will add in this indent here. Now in JavaScript we use these curly braces here, and we put all our code inside of the curly braces, and that's how we know that that code belongs to the if statement. But in Python we use the colon, and on the next line we make it indented, and basically any line under this that's indented belongs to the if statement. And also notice that there's no brackets here. We can add them, it will still work, but we don't need to add them here. And I'm going to say if age is greater than 10, print you are older than 10. And yeah, I just want to run this, and now it will print out you are older than 10. But if I change age here to like 8 and I run this, it won't print out anything here because age is now less than 10. And we can also use else just like in JavaScript. So here we just type else, we add our colon here, and then again on the next line we need to make sure it's indented as well. That's how we know that this code belongs to the else statement. If we didn't indent it and we typed it like this, it will give us an error. So we need to press tab here to make sure that it's indented. And here I'm just going to print you, I forgot to include the quotes here, you are too young. So now if we run this, we get you are too young, because 8 is not greater than 10 here. So if we change this back to let's say 11 and run this, it will now say you are older than 10. So we can also do else if, and the way we do that in Python is, make some space here, we want to type elif, E-L-I-F, and then before we add in our colon we need to give another argument like this. So now I'm going to say age is greater than 7. We want to say print, and our brackets here we use a quote, you are almost old enough. And I'm just going to get rid of this empty line here. So before I run this, we're saying if age is greater than 10, print out you are older than 10, or that's what this elif means. It's another if statement basically chained onto this. If age is greater than 7, print you are almost old enough. Else, print you are too young. Now you may be wondering why we use elif instead of just using two different if statements, but we may run into a piece of code here where this is true and this is also true. Now if we had two separate if statements, it will print out both of these. But since we're using elif here, if this one is true and this code runs, it will just skip over everything else here, even if this is also true. So that's the benefit of using elif here. Now if we run this, since 11 is still greater than 10, it's going to print you are older than 10. So let's change this to like 8, because 8 is not older than 10, but it is older than 7. So let's run this, and you can see we get you are almost old enough. So now it's running this line of code here. And that's basically how if, elif, and else works. In other programming languages you might see this called else if, but in Python it's called aleph. Okay, so let me get rid of all of this. And now he's showing us how to take input from the user. Now he started off by taking in a integer value, but I think that's a little bit confusing to start off with. So I'm going to show you how to take in a string first. So I'm going to create a variable here called name, and I'm going to set it equal to input. And inside of the brackets here for input, we need to type a string. Now this string is what's going to be asked to the user. So we're going to say enter your name, and we'll put a colon here just so that it looks nice. The colon is not code or something, it's just part of the string here. So I'll hit run. And you can see now it's asking us to input our name. And we can actually type into the terminal now, and I can type Theo there, and it will terminate there. But what's actually happening here is whatever the user types in, it's going to store it inside this name variable here. So on the next line, if I print hello, and I leave a space here, plus name, let's save this and run it. It's now asking for our name again, so I'm going to type in Theo, and you can see here it prints out hello Theo. So yeah, that's how getting input works, and it stores it inside the variable and we can use it here. Now what he showed in the video was how to get a number. So I'm going to get rid of all of this, and I'm going to call the variable num1, and I'll set it equal to input. But we can't actually directly use input here, because anything that comes in through that input function will automatically be a string. So we need to use int and then our brackets here. And what this does is it's basically like the parseInt function in JavaScript. So any string that's inside of here, it will convert it into an integer, which is a number. So inside of here I'm going to put input and our brackets again for the input function. And I'm going to add my quotes here, and I'll say enter a number. And then on the bottom here, I'm going to print out num1 plus 5, just to show you that it's a real string, because whatever we enter here, when we add 5 to it, it should give us a new number. If it was a string, we know that this won't actually add the numbers together, because one is a string and one is a number. So I'm going to run this. It'll say enter a number. I'll type 5 here, and it will print out 10 down here. So now we're sure that this converted it into a number, because if this was a string and we added 5 to it, it would not work properly. So this is a number. We added a number to it. It just did the normal maths and gave us 10 here. Okay, so now he's teaching us how to use loops here. So I'm going to get rid of all of this. And let's create a list. So I'm going to name this variable myList, and we need to set it equal to the square brackets here. So the square brackets is how we create lists in Python. And then I'm going to use my quotes here, and I'll type apple, and then outside of this quote here I'm going to put a comma, and I'm going to add next quotes here. So we have one string here, comma, and now I'm adding in a second string, and in the second string I'm just going to type orange here. So let's say I wanted to print out both of these separately. So we'll go through this with the for loop. So I'll type the word for here, and now we need to create a brand new variable. So we'll just call this x for now, and I'll say in myList, and we need to add in our colon here. And now on the next line you can see that it's indented by default, but if it's not, just hit tab and it will be. Same as the if statement, how it was indented there. So what's this going to do? Any code that's in here, like for example print x here, it's going to be run the same number of times as how many items are in our list. So here we have 2 items. And this variable x, the first time this code runs, x is going to be equal to the first item in our list, and the second time it runs, x is going to be equal to the second item in our list. And if we had 3 or 4 items, then the third time this will be equal to the third item, the fourth time this will be equal to the fourth item, and so on. That's a good enough explanation. I hope everyone understands how for loops work. But if I print this out now, we should see it print apple, and then after that print orange. So okay, I ran it printed apple, and then on the next line here it printed orange. So next we're going to be doing while loops, and the while loop, to use it, basically you type the word while here, and then you want to give a statement that's true here. So we can say, for example, num is less than 5 because it's 1 right now. So num is less than 5, and then we use our colon here, and on the next line you need to make sure that that's indented. We can type some code here, so I'm just going to say print num. And if I actually run it as it is now, it will just print 1 over and over and over again forever. So inside of this while loop, we need to have some code that will eventually make the statement false so that the while loop can terminate. So inside of here, I'm going to say num is equal to num plus 1. And you need to make sure you do it this way. If you just type num plus 1 here, it's not going to work because you're adding 1 to num, but you're not saving it. So at the beginning of this line, you need to make sure you have num is equal to. And now when we run this code, it's going to run once, it will print out num, and then it will add 1 to num. So now num will be equal to 2. And then it will run again, num will print out 2 here, and then it will add 1, and basically it will keep doing this until this statement here is no longer true. So num will be either equal to or greater than 5, and then it will stop running this while loop. So let's run this, and yeah, we can see it printed out 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then it stopped at 5. The reason why it stopped at 5 is because although 5 is not greater than 5, it is equal to 5. So this statement of being less than 5 is no longer true. And yeah, that's basically how you use while loops. Okay, now in the last lesson which I'm in now, the first thing he showed us is how to use if statements inside of a loop. So here I'm just going to say if. I'm not really going to explain what I'm doing here because we all have already seen if statements now. So if num is greater than 3, I'm going to say break here, and I'm going to keep that line on the top where we said print num. So this break keyword will actually break us out of the loop here. And there's one thing I forgot to do here, which is num is equal to num plus 1. You need to make sure that this line is always in whatever while loop you're running. If you forget to put in a line that will eventually make this false, this code will literally keep running forever. You'll have to kill that terminal while the code is running in it. So now let's look at what this will do. We have num here, we set it equal to 1, and we know what these two lines of code here do. They just print out whatever's inside of num, and then they add 1 to it and print out the new number until the loop stops running. But this if statement here, once num becomes greater than 3, it's going to run this code here which just says break. And what break will do is it will basically kill this process here. It will kill this while loop. So I'm actually going to change this down to 2, because if we leave it at 3, the only number greater than 3 is 4, and it was going to stop at 4 anyway, so we won't see any results here. So that's why I changed it to 2 here, and I'm going to run this, and we can see it went 1, 2, and then it just stopped here. So it should actually only stop when the number is equal to 5, but because we have this break statement here, it kills the loop. And this if statement is controlling when the loop ends. So we're just making a bit more control of this loop by saying when num is greater than 2, break this loop. Now this may not look so useful right now, But imagine you had a list of a million things here and you were looking for one thing inside of it. Well, you could have an if statement here to say if we found that thing, just break out of the loop. You don't need to check the rest of the values in the loop. And this could actually save you a bunch of time, because imagine if the list was 2 million items long and the item you were looking for was just item 2 in the list. So instead of going through the whole 2 million items, your code would only go through the first and second item and then stop there because it found what it was looking for. Okay, so next we look at continue here. So I'm going to get rid of this if statement from here. And I'm going to add another if statement between the print and this num is equal to num plus 1 line. And the line I'm going to add here is I'm going to say if num 2 equals 2 signs to check if it's equal to something. If it's equal to 3, we add our colon here. And again, make sure you have the indents correct here. So if num is equal to 3, continue. And you can just leave this line blank here, it'll still work properly, but I like to neaten it up if it's inside of a if statement or while statement. I don't like to leave lines in between. So I'm going to run this, and now it's just going to keep printing 3 forever. So I made an error there. What I actually wanted to do is I wanted this line at the top and print at the bottom, so I'm just going to fix that up quickly. Num is equal to num plus 1, and at the bottom here I'm going to say print num. And that error that you just saw in my terminal here is exactly what I warned you against. It was just printing the number 3 over and over again, and it was going to do that an infinite amount of time. So if that happens, just click the trash icon and it will kill the terminal. So here if I run this, what it will actually do is it will print 2, and then it will skip over 3 and print 4 and 5. So the way continue works is it will add 1 to the number here and it will print it out, and then it will do the same thing again. But when that number is equal to 3, it will run this continue statement here. And what this does is any code that's after it, it will just skip it and go on to the next iteration of the loop. So basically this continue statement here makes it skip any code that's after this. And yeah, that's why it printed out 2, 4 and 5 but not 3, because when we reached 3 it skipped. Now another command we can use here is pass, which he also showed, and I think he didn't do a good job of explaining this. So what this does is literally nothing. It won't alter the data, it won't do anything at all. So if I run this, it will just print out all the numbers 2, 3, 4 and 5. But the reason why pass is actually important and we do use this command is because let's say we were creating a function down here. I know we haven't covered functions right now, but just watch what I'm doing. So I'm going to create a function, I'll call it myfunc. And yeah, imagine we created this function, but we're not yet ready to put code inside of it. Well, right now you can see it gives us an error because we didn't put any code into it. So for now we can just put pass there. And this will actually not give us any errors. It will look as if the function is correct, but there's no code inside here. This pass actually does nothing. So this is a good way of having a placeholder so that you can come back later and put the actual function here. Now I know I just showed you how to create functions here, but it actually wasn't covered in this week's lessons. So just ignore that or learn it. It's just simple, you use the keyword def. And yeah, let's head back. I think we're done with this week's lessons, but let me just watch the last video to the end to make sure. Okay, yeah, so the last thing he showed us is just how to use break inside of a while loop, which I've already explained and covered. So yeah. Now it just prints out 2 and it breaks at 3. I've already explained how this works before, so we all already know this. And yeah, that's week 7's lessons done. It was really quick. I think it only took me about 2 hours to get through all the lessons, maybe even 1 hour. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.